Can I keep temperatures more stable than a machine? We're about to find out. Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad BBQ, and today we're gonna put my decade of experience cooking on a ceramic cooker to the test. A little while ago, I thought this was a slam dunk in my court, but then I found out I hadn't updated the firmware on my iKamand, and I'm actually really nervous. As my last few cooks, it's been drawing a straight line on that temperature bar. So I'm feeling a little less confident than I might have been when I first got it, but nonetheless, we're still gonna try. So I'm gonna walk you through setting up two fires. We're gonna set up the iKamand, as that's where I have the bottom vent plate, and use that on the Kamado Joe Classic. And then I'm gonna try and control the Big Joe manually. I'll bring you a little bit closer, show you how exactly we get set up, but first, let's introduce our two contenders. And in our first corner, it's Smokin' Dad, who's wearing plaid under plaid, total dad move, supposed to represent mankind. And in our other corner, we have, oh, seems excited. Oh, Team Artificial Intelligence is going to be cooking with the iKamand today. Lots of confidence from both contenders. Some trash talk. Comment below who you think will win. Well, that was something, but enough fooling around. Let's get started. So to try and have as few variables as possible, we're gonna do a couple things. I'm gonna start with a completely empty basket in both grills and add some fresh Jealous Devil charcoal. That way we're not getting any inconsistency between used charcoal and new charcoal. You should burn exactly the same. We're also gonna set up both grills. They're both Series 3 Kamado Joes, the Classic and the Big Joe, and I'm going to go to the middle position of the divide and conquer rack, and that's where I'm gonna install the heat deflector plates. And we're gonna let the grill come up to temperature with those plates in an open position. That way we get some heat in the dome before we close them. Then we're gonna install our grids as well as the Kamado Joe grid extender on both grills. So we have the probes up more similar to where the dome probe is. So it should be deadly accurate. And that way we're not getting a different reading, whether it's the Kamado Joe iKamand temperature reading or another system in the Big Joe. We're gonna use the Inkbird BBQ 4T, as it can track up to 4 probes at the same time. So this is gonna be our official data logger to let us know how we're doing controlling each grill's temperature. Anyways, enough chit chat. Let me bring the camera a little closer and we'll show you how we're gonna get set up. I'm gonna start with the Big Joe today, as it's bigger, it needs just a touch more time to build some heat. So we'll start there and then move over to the Classic. Okay, let's get started on our Big Joe. As you can see, we've got a completely empty basket. Just gonna go ahead and add a little charcoal. That looks pretty good. So I'm going for about a half to 2/3 of a basket in each one. That should be more than enough fuel for our test. Let's go ahead and get a fire started. Okay, so that looks good. And so as you saw, I'm trying to concentrate the fire directly down in the center, as well as just make sure that's where we've got a majority of our charcoal, just so we can try and control the burn right in the middle and we're not getting any extra heat coming up around the sides of our deflector plates, potentially giving us a false reading. So let's go ahead and grab our X accessory ring and get this installed. And I want to pre-warm these two plates. So this is a really important step for a couple reasons. First, you want to make sure that you get heat in your upper dome. This is one of the things that helps the Kamado remain so consistent for low and slow cooking. And the other reason it's really important, as you may tell from the lack of leaves, or maybe my breath is coming through on camera, is it's cold. And we don't want to get the grill hot and then drop in cold ceramics, as that's going to stress them, potentially even crack them. So to avoid that, for both benefits, what we do is we just drop them in exactly like this in a pizza configuration. And this is going to allow them to start soaking up some of that heat, but at the same time, they're not blocking all of the heat that'll prevent us from getting heat in our upper dome. So I'm just gonna try and actually stretch those out as wide as I can. The metal grates and the grid expander, they'll warm up really quickly, so we don't need to worry about preheating those. So I'm gonna just close the dome now that we've got our bottom vent all the way open. I'm also going to leave the top dome open until this white billowy smoke that we can see here dissipates. Once that starts burning clean, I actually want to then come back and close this to the max open closed position. Since what we're doing is we're actually losing a lot of heat when it's open like this, and it will heat up quicker with it closed than it will when it's wide open. So we're just gonna wait though until we can't see the smoke be white and billowy. Let's go ahead and set up our classic. Okay, so let's get some charcoal going in our classic. Okay, so that looks good, about the same, you know, 1/2 to 2/3 of a basket. Let's go ahead and grab our grill torch once again and start a fire in our classic. Make sure my vents are all the way open. They are. Okay, and same thing, we just want to make sure, again, our coal is nice and centered. Good burn right in the middle of our charcoal basket. Let's go ahead and, just like the Big Joe, add in our X accessory ring, as well as our 2 deflector plates. Also doing that pizza configuration. And just like on the Big Joe, we'll go ahead and open our vent to the wide open position and let that start building some heat. Okay, so we just finished lighting our classic Joe, and peeking over here, I can already see some temperature in the dome on the Big Joe, but it's cold to the touch, so we're not getting heat in the dome. So what's likely happening is we're getting some fire just coming straight up and going right out the top. That is quite warm. Let's take a look. That's exactly what we've got going. So we've just got some flames coming up and making it read that the grill is 250 degrees Fahrenheit, but it is not. So to help stabilize that now, what we'll do is we'll just close the vent just like so. And I'm gonna go down to the bottom vent here and go to about 1 finger's width on the bottom draft door. So that is gonna slow down those raging flames, but there's still more than enough draw to get our fire to come up to temperature. And again, I'm gonna wait till that stabilizes around 250 degrees Fahrenheit before actually closing those ceramics. Okay, so it's been about 2 minutes, and again, we can see our classic temperature gauge is climbing quickly, but that is still cool to the touch. So just like our Big Joe, I think we've got that center flame burning hot, but not necessarily warming up our ceramic. So what we're gonna do, just go ahead and close the control tower top, leave it wide open in the max airflow position, and then go down to our bottom draft door, and again, aim for about a finger's width of space down here on our classic. So some of you might be wondering at this point, why not use the iKamand Fire It Up feature? So the iKamand does have this feature where you have to just start your fire and you hit Fire It Up and it'll take it from there. But again, in the spirit of wanting to keep variables as few and far between as possible, I thought it would be best to set up both grills the way that I always do for a low and slow cook. This is a method that I've developed over 10 years of trial and error, mostly air, but in the spirit of persistence, we finally found a way of getting predictable, consistent low and slow temperatures. And so now when I set up my grills, this is exactly how I do it. If I'm gonna do an overnight brisket or a pork, even without the assistance of the iKamand, which will continue to make sure my fire doesn't go out, this is just a foolproof way of doing it. If you'd like to see even more details and go into a deeper dive on this, I'll put a link down below to my foolproof low and slow video where I share this detail along with a couple more tips and tricks to help you get stable temperatures. So now we're just gonna wait, again, those few more minutes until we start to feel some heat in our dome and our temperature gauges land at about 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we'll be ready to start closing our plates, installing our grids, and moving into our next stage of our head-to-head battle. Okay, both grill domes are feeling warm. That's nice. And when it's cold out here, a little hand warmer. Let's check out our Big Joe. Same thing. So I think it's time to go ahead and push our plates together. Let me grab the tripod and we'll set up both Joes. Okay, let's start with our Big Joe. So the first thing that we want to do is push our plates together and make sure that they are as centered as possible so that we're getting good airflow around the outside of the plates. I really prefer the second position on the divide and conquer rack, as it doesn't act like a heat barrier, a cap, forcing all of that heat into your lower ceramics. You get better airflow and air movement around your food, is something that I found. So that's why, if I didn't cover earlier, why I like going for that position. Let's go ahead and drop in our grids. And again, we're going to drop in the grid extender on both Joes, just so when we pin our probe, it'll be up here close in a more similar spot to where our dome temperature is. So now that we've closed this back up, what we're going to do is wait for this temperature to start recovering. So before, it was getting the benefit of the heat coming up and directly warming the dome as well as the probe. And this will stay at this position for about 5-10 minutes before it sort of starts climbing more quickly. As it gets closer and closer to 250 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm going to start controlling or moving my control tower top closer to its end position. And so I think for 250 degrees, we'll end up somewhere right about here, just on the inside of this line, but we'll keep an eye on that. So for the time being, I'll just leave that open until we start to come close to the 250 degrees, making those micro adjustments as it gets closer and closer, and that'll have us settle right in at 250 degrees. Let's go do the same thing for our classic. And since we're going to be controlling the classic with the iKamand, I'm actually going to go ahead right away and close this down to about 75% of the first line on the control tower top. And that's because the iKamand does much better when it's in control of the airflow. If you have too much air, when it accelerates the air, it'll overshoot the temperature and it'll take it a really long time to slow back down. So you're better off with a much tighter airflow. So I'm just going to go ahead and make that adjustment right now, as well as get our iKamand out, and we'll start setting that up. Okay, so if you've seen some of my other videos before, you know with the iKamand, I actually installed both doors. So I have the original draft door from Kamado Joe, so I can adjust temperatures manually, or when using the iKamand, I have the plate here to install. It's a little stickier when you're sliding, but in general, it works really well. You could either move it one-on-one or both together in order to get that one-finger operation that I like. But today, we're using the iKamand. So I'm going to go ahead and put the stock door all the way open so that I can slide the iKamand into its base. Okay, so now that we have the base in, we want to go ahead and install the pit probe for the iKamand. So this is going to help the iKamand know what temperature we are running at. So I'm just going to go right here. And then I'm going to go right beside it with our Inkbird BBQ 4T. So I'm going to use the fourth probe position for our Kamado Joe Classic, being controlled by the iKamand. Run our wires here, and we will go fire up the iKamand. All right, so now that we got both fires going, both grills are reading within about 3 degrees Fahrenheit of one another. Our Kamado Joe Classic has already gone through its spike, dip, and recovery. The Big Joe is just behind it. It's just done the bottoming out. I'm just going to be adjusting the vents till we get it that perfect stable. And then we're going to see which one can draw the line the straightest over the next couple hours. I'll rejoin you in a little bit once we've got an update, once both grills have had a chance to do some more data logging. We'll find out if I've got a chance or if the machine's going to walk away with it. Who knows? We'll see soon enough. All right, we are about 5 hours into the future, and guys, this one was close. In fact, when I came back from being out this afternoon, I came and checked the Inkbird, and I saw the exact same temperature on both pits. And so if we were just looking at that as a glance, we'd call this a draw. So we're gonna have to go into the data and actually look at the logging graphs to see if we can pick a winner from this. Let's start by taking a look at our Big Joe. And so when I look at our Big Joe and start scrolling through the day here, I see what looks like a very mild wave pattern in the temperatures, gaining a little bit and then settling down a little bit and then gaining a little bit. And I definitely think what's going on today is we have a pretty strong breeze. In fact, let me just add a little clip earlier as I was setting up my camera and the wind blew over the tripod. And this will allow us to remove hot. So as you can see, strong breeze. And what this is doing is this is forcing some more air than normal into the bottom of our Kamado Joe. And that's maybe causing that temp to accelerate and then it's settling back down. But all in all, this is a really great, looking curve. And I'm really pleased to be able to represent Team Human admirably here in this test. Let's go take a look at our Kamado Joe Classic using the iKamand. So when we start scrolling through the data here, all in all, very tight range. We're talking 6 to 8 degrees, sort of plus minus that 250 degrees. This is way more accurate than your oven would be if we were to test that. They read the same temperature all day, but they do have significant spikes up and down. So really, really pleased to be able to hold this type of a line, but it looks a little bit more like a chop, if you will, if sticking with that wave analogy. And so to help make sense of this, let's put both line bars on top of one another so we can see them at the exact same time. And so scrolling through the day here, and the app doesn't allow me to export the data. I wish it did, because what I would do is actually put that in a spreadsheet and just do the average delta to 250 degree. So we're just gonna have to rely on our eyes for this test. But looking at the whole day, I will say that the Big Joe comes out the winner here. It's a more stable, closer to the pin for that 250 degree Fahrenheit target temperature that we wanted to hold all day. But that is amazing that you can leapfrog 10 years of practice and experience and control the temperatures almost immediately, just as well as someone I'd like to hopefully think knows a thing or two about controlling their Kamado at this point. Remarkable. So if you're thinking about getting, a more expensive cut of beef, maybe something like a brisket, and you don't want to worry about that $100 cut of beef, potentially your flame going out overnight, I think you can get there, work your way up to it. I definitely encourage you to check out my other videos on controlling your pit, as you can do it. But if you just want to delete the worry and know that you can knock out an amazing cook, I would definitely encourage you to check out the iKamand. That 6 some odd degree swing one way or the other is not something that's going to show up in the taste of your food. And you can rest assured, no flames going out, no runaway temperatures, no waking up to an alarm at 3 in the morning telling you that your fire is completely extinguished. So I just think that's an amazing piece of kit. And I'm sure over time, as the firmware updates continue to be released, my chances of retaining this crown might get further and further reduced. But we'll worry about that in the future. Anyways, I hope you really enjoyed today's video. If you did, please let YouTube know by smashing that like button, and let me know by hitting subscribe to catch future videos. Until next time, I'm James from Smokin' Dad BBQ signing off. And remember, don't be afraid to fire it up.